So we just discussed that we've known each other for longer than your youngest child has been alive.
Yeah.
So how long is that? 10 years?
No, about eight and a half years.
8.5 precisely.
Yeah.
And we met because of, did someone introduce us?
It was when somebody introduced us. It was when Copy Club was about, I think, 8 of us met in the pub. I think it was quite literally that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was great.
It was great. So we met then. You were at Fever Tree?
That's right. Yeah.
And then give me the quick.
It was 5 years at Fever Tree.
Yeah.
Initially as a UK marketing director.
Yeah.
Then into creating essentially the global brand function of the business. Because at that point, I think when I joined, they were doing around 50 or 60 million. And then they were growing, doubling year on year. And by the time I left, we were in 93 markets around the world. The business was doing in excess of 250 million. We'd launched a subsidiary in the US, and kind of that was almost the foundations of where the brand is today.
Yeah.
And they've gone on to do loads of amazing things. But so there was that, and then I left there to unsuccessfully bring a cleaning brand from Australia to the UK called KOH, which was. It was like the dream. It was when COVID was here. It was one spray cleans everything. I was like, that's exactly what I need.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, great. I'm going to bring it to the UK, launch it. And we did launch it, but then we didn't have any money. And D2C costs were starting to really ramp up. So that didn't really work out. So instead of going back into FMCG, I decided to try and launch another D2C brand with Julian Metcalf and It's Your Grocery. We tried to launch a recipe box business called It's Your Brilliant Box. And that was then at the time when everyone was stashing their cardboard in their garages. And then KFC ran out of chicken. So to try and launch a recipe box business made of card with chicken probably as the main protein, terrible idea. So we ended up canning that idea and then spent a bit more time working with the brilliant people at It's Your Grocery on their sort of strategy. And then essentially found myself working in dairy. If you'd ever asked me about...
This is all such a logical part. Every moment of this is...
Obviously, if you'd asked me, oh, do you want to work in yogurts one day? Absolutely not. You know, I was enjoying being on terraces, drinking gin and tonic. To now, a bit of yogurt.
Yeah, I've loads of bacteria.
But I found myself at Danone helping actually them work and their restructure when they brought the 5 different business units together and creating one kind of communications team that looked after all of their communications across touch points, from waters to yogurts to oat, Alpro. And then before I knew it, I'd been persuaded to go on the gut health journey. And I've literally 2 years later, feels like 2 minutes, here I am.
That's incredible.
So it's been one hell of a whirlwind of 8.5 years since we were meeting in that pub with 8 people.
What a ride. Yeah. But we've stayed in touch the whole way through. So it's really nice hearing you say that. I'm kind of like remembering phone calls in different places to be like, oh, I remember that chat when you were there. What in all of that like slightly mad journey have been the consistent things you've loved?
You could say it's probably been a consistent love and hate, and that's been working with founders.
Okay.
Actually, and I think there's something, whether I like it or not, I'm just drawn to working with founder-led businesses.
Yeah.
Because probably for a number of reasons. One is usually because they're at a different stage in their business growth and their maturity, and you have probably a much bigger opportunity to shape the long-term future when it's in those earlier stages. And I think that there's also a very personal element about it when you're working with founder-led brands, particularly in FMCG I'm talking here, but is that I guess the role of a CMO or marketing director is to take the seed of an idea, and often these founders haven't necessarily worked in marketing or really, they've got an instinct about it, but how do you take what is often a brilliant product, Fever Tree, best tonic water on the market, Biotiful gut health kefir. I mean, Natasha created the category, by far the best product on the market. But how do you then start to take that and shape it into what in 5-10 years time will be a a big household staple or big household brand. And sort of the excitement of being able to take that on the journey, and potentially the pain of taking on that journey as well, is just something that's built deep inside me, whether the love and hate things.
There is a downside to it, right? You're dealing with all kinds of crazy.
Well, I think it's because there's a much more emotional element to it for these brilliant founders who have created their baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it is their baby in a way, and ultimately you're coming in, and your role is to help them grow up, and maybe to take them from being a toddler to an adolescent to an adult. But you're almost in a way having to advise a parent on how to parent their child using a kind of a human
and there's
metaphor.
some growing pains in it.
There's
a bit of kicking and screaming.
There really is, and also it's so emotional for the founder.
Yeah.
You know, if you say the logo looks shit, you know, they probably put their heart and soul into that logo. So how you go about approaching that is completely different to how you might do it in a corporate world.
What advice would you have for someone working with founders?
I think in a way you almost have to treat them like a client.
That's interesting.
And having come from the first part of my career before Fever Tree was working in agencies, brand marketing agencies, in their founding agency. So actually approaching it more like a client, ultimately you need to make the client feel like they're the most important client. You have to navigate the politics in a way, and I hate the word politics, but it is to approach things in a way that will sell things in. Whereas if you were in maybe a corporate environment, yes, of course you need to sell things, but often it's on a much more kind of open playing field. And that doesn't mean that you're never going to be open with a founder. And in fact, often you'll have much more open conversations with them, but don't ever think that they're not kind of someone you need to sell to. And I think I've seen where things have fallen down is selling in the wrong way, or feeling like you're trying to negotiate with a founder. You have to do it in a very personal way, so it feels like you're having a very open and transparent conversation. But at the same time, you almost have to do a much smarter selling job, because they're so much more invested in anything that they're agreeing to doing. So whether it's a rebrand, and we did that with Fever Tree. It was this sort of black and gold. I don't know if you remember. This was like, it was like a black with gold on, which was like faux 90s luxury.
Yeah.
To all this bright, effervescent vibrancy they got today.
Yeah.
There was a journey to take the founders on, because what they had created was by far the best product, and they believed in what the branding was.
Yeah.
But actually, was it the best for the future? No, it wasn't. But there was a journey to go on there, or even down to, how do you show up at an event? Or what are you putting on social media? And an example with Biotiful being gut health and digestion. If we start talking about poo a lot, whilst that is kind of a taboo that's being broken down, and we play a role in how good is your poo, actually that can be quite an emotive thing about actually talking about shit doesn't make the brand shit. So, there's all these different things, and different people have, their nuances and their quirks around what is right for them, which ultimately as a founder flows through into how you act as a brand.
Yeah.
And you just don't have that in the corporate world. There's no innate kind of deep emotional connection with it as CEO. It just doesn't exist in the same way.
Which has its advantages and disadvantages.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think the job of a CMO is? I'm asking all of my CMOs this in our interviews, because I'm fascinated whether the answers are the same or different.
I mean, ultimately, our job is to sell, but equally our role is to identify where the opportunities or the needs are within consumers or other businesses that then allow us to create the products or services for that. Now, I think FMCG is maybe a bit different to insurance businesses and things, but in the world in which I operate, my remit covers innovation, product, actually technical, and the quality of the products we produce, and all of the marketing that comes with that, the way we show up, through to that having an influence on the pricing of how we position things, through to the big TV and ad campaigns. So it's a really broad remit. So my role really is making sure that all of that is joined up, and that we are creating what is going to deliver the most value for the business. And in this sense, it's the best gut health products. So, because if we didn't create that, the sales team wouldn't have something to sell and the supply operations wouldn't have anything to make.
Do you think marketing's got in a bit of a muddle? Like the word sell, and you said that so quick off the bat, but I think most marketers would kind of shirk at that. Like, do you think we've got in a bit of a mess that we've forgotten that our job is about sales?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, if you'd asked me this question when we first met, I probably told you a completely different answer. And probably wanging on about how important, like, just the brand is and how it makes you feel, and these like all elements. It's all about the creative side, and actually, over the past 8-9 years, that's hugely important because that's part of selling. If you're not appealing to people and you're not landing the right message to the right people, that's equally important. But it goes back to the classic 4 Ps. All of those elements are so important. I think people can sometimes find themselves down a rabbit hole and say it's all about the communication, or
it's basically my Instagram,
or be just or just be sucked up into let's make the product really great. But often that sits with a different team. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, our role in whether we are just doing communications or whether we're working on propositions or product is to make the most compelling thing that delivers against the consumer or business need.
Yeah.
Because if we're not doing that and we're not understanding that, then we can have the best salespeople in the world. They might sell a few because they're great at sales. They could sell snow to Eskimos, but is that going to deliver long-term value? No, it's not.
It's not sustainable.
And I think, I mean, it was probably even before I started my career. I remember reading David Ogilvy's book, and ultimately it was all about you've got to sell stuff. That's what my advertising in the business and why I wanted to go into advertising. Like, let's sell stuff creatively. But then as you move into more of, I guess, in-house, in-brand, client-side roles, that's still very important. But it's how does that element of what you do in kind of communication link up with the commercial realities and actually understanding the buyers and the customers that we're selling through is equally important.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've definitely learned most recently, the last couple of years, of actually don't just look through the consumer lens, always look through the customer lens too. And everything we do is very much through both those lenses. And are they marrying up? Because we could be the best thing to a consumer, but actually if it's not going to be compelling to get a buyer to get behind what you're doing,
You've got nothing.
Or operate and deliver in the customer or the retail environment, then actually it's just going to be a failure.
One of the things that Biotiful has done very well is to find the lines and the messages that take a product mainstream.
Well, I think one of the things you often find in these fast growth businesses is they're so product centric.
Yeah.
And that will only get you so far. But I guess if you look at the big successful brands, and I mean, and this is marketing 101, right? When you're brand building, is how do you start to really carve out and cement your relevance in someone's lives? It's not just about the kefir. Actually, you start to talk about what that means for you or simplify it. And when you're building a category, and let's talk about gut health and kefir, gut health is really starting to get it's in the mainstream now.
Yeah. It's
one of the biggest functional trends. And I think, well, I don't think I know, we've been tracking this for the last 2 years. About 70% of consumers 2 years ago knew that gut health was important, didn't really know what to do about it. That's now at 89% of consumers know gut health is important. There's still a big percentage of people that don't know why and don't know what to do about it. But basically, everyone knows it's really important. So our job has been simplifying the role of kefir and associating that with natural gut health.
Yeah.
And then in the communication, just starting to say, it's basically yogurt with benefits. And people are like, oh.
Great.
Oh, yeah, I eat loads of yogurt. So I'm basically eating yogurt that's a bit better.
Yeah.
And that was a really easy shift. Whereas show just a bottle of kefir, people thought, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
So it's trying to find those real simple things that your average Joe just go, oh yeah, no, I get that. That's what I want.
What was the actual process in getting to that clarity?
I don't. Sometimes I don't know. I guess it's sometimes it's trying to take a step back.
Yeah.
because when you're in a business, and it often helps when you come new into a business, I think, and probably why CMOs have relatively short tenures. They can come in and they're fresh pair of eyes. When you're singing, when you're in your own echo chamber, it just takes someone to come in and go, "What have you thought about that?" But actually, I think it's just really important to take that step back and not look at it just within your own world and sit behind a desk. You need to get out there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, over the last fever-tree days, I spent half the year just going around Europe, just walking around supermarkets and going out to bars and restaurants. The latter being really good fun. The former being really interesting and useful.
Yeah.
The latter being, but just seeing how are people picking things up? How do you sit as a brand alongside the other products on shelf? And then when you get into the on-trade in the restaurants, how are people looking at the menus, or how are the drinks you're trying to be an ingredient within feature on menus? So what do you then need to do to influence? And I think the one message to any marketer is just get out and just constantly talk about what you're selling, see what's happening. And we do a lot of sharing internally. We've got a brilliant team at Biotiful, the sales team are constantly sharing things that are happening in retail. So we start to see that, but there's nothing better than going and standing in Waitrose or Sainsbury's for half an hour in your fixture. And when someone stood there and you can see them, they'll pick things up, just grab them, just go, why did you change that? And they might be taken aback, but don't be afraid to do that. People love talking about it.
So fun. Yeah.
They really love it. I'm a stalker in Waitrose and Surbiton. My kids are really embarrassed because suddenly I'll be chatting to people and I'm like, Dad, we need to go. But it's so useful.
As a good marketeer, you have to have a relentless curiosity for how and why people do things. And that might mean that you're applying that in a category that you're passionate about. I've worked in some categories that I am absolutely not passionate about, and I found them no less rewarding.
Yeah.
Because I find the process and I find the psychology of it so intriguing that that's all I need, kind of irrespective of the psychology of what. I don't care whether it's like mortgages or some really dull B2B something, like I've done my fair share of dull stuff, and I've done some stuff that I've been a real customer of. And for me, it's curiosity and fascination in the process. I think that's one camp, or curiosity and fascination in the end product in the category. But I think without either, it's a hard road.
And curiosity in human behavior and people is probably the number one thing that makes a great marketer. And the people in my team who I sort of always inwardly so proud of and almost admire is they're just asking questions. And sometimes it can be a bit annoying when they're just constantly asking internal questions like, we need to move on. But because they're so curious about stuff and they want to keep diving deeper.
It's healthy.
But then when they're in an external environment and you're just seeing this natural curiosity of just asking questions, whether it's to consumers or even at sampling days. We do lots of sampling things. We do lots of things in the retailer head offices, and it just makes me smile so much inside when people in the team, and it's not even just the marketing team, that they get talking to people at the stand or sampling for the cafe, and they just keep asking questions, and it's just a joy to watch, because that's where you start to unpick those little consumer things that you're just never going to get from mass research. And I think that's probably the single most important thing about making a great marketer is that curiosity.
I want to hear, so you did a big TV campaign last year.
Yes.
I don't often speak to people who do TV because so many of our community work in much smaller brands. So for lots of us, this is all very exciting and kind of big, red carpet style. I want to understand kind of why you did it, why it was the right moment, how you got to the creative. And I'm sure it'll feel like bread and butter to you, but I think to people listening, that's quite a mad, wild world.
It is. And I remember probably a few weeks into joining Biotiful.
Yeah.
I used to have my weekly walks with Natasha around Brook Green,
Nice.
kind of our strategic thinking walking. And we were getting to a point as a brand, and by this point I sort of was quite confident that one of the biggest barriers was awareness.
Yeah.
And having worked in loads of massive brands over the last 15, 20 years, TV ultimately comes to mind. How do you reach the most number of people?
Put it on TV.
Put on TV or radio, or mass advertising, because that's the quickest way. Often you could question, is it the most efficient way? I'll come on to that in a minute. And I remember saying to Natasha, oh yeah, if you considered TV, and the response was essentially that the brand had sort of dabbled in it with a sort of a Channel 4 partnership a couple of years prior and hadn't really seen much success. And so the media,
a common story,
which is a common story, and I've talked to lots of smaller brands and advised smaller brands, and they've invested quite a lot of money for them as a business and haven't really seen an uptick. So the immediate response was, well, we ever tried that, it didn't work. So, but I think, I mean, I'm going on a slight tangent here, but in fast growth brands, you can try things at one point, but a couple of years down the line, your business and your maturity could be in a very different place. And actually, the maturity of a category could be in a very different place. So if I'd asked people what kefir was, I mean, actually, when I was, first introduced to Natasha 3 years ago, didn't even know what kefir was. Whereas look at it now, most people know what kefir is, or their staff, they've heard of it. So even the maturity of a category is different. But it's a bit of a tangent there. But I guess when we came to it, was one of our biggest barriers. We have the best product. We'd started to really simplify what is it we need to say. But actually, biggest barrier was people knowing about us. By this point, 2 years ago, when we started this conversation, we were available in all the main retailers. Maybe our distribution wasn't, across in every single store, and our range wasn't as big as it is now. But actually, we were very widely available, but people just didn't necessarily know they needed to look for us, or we existed. And typically, if you're walking down a yogurt aisle, there's quite a lot of products down there. So ultimately, unless you've exposed people to be front of mind, they're not even going to notice you on shelf. So I guess where we end up, first of all, we actually didn't run TV until it was over 12 months since I'd been in the business. We first of all just started to test different messaging through a lot of our digital channels. We then ran our first above the line campaign sort of under my tenure in September 23, which was actually focused more around addressing the barrier of taste perception. Because what we had identified quite quickly was people were starting to hear about kefir, but immediately you just saw their
just think it tastes funny.
Yeah, and they'd never tried it, but they just thought, oh, it's got a weird foreign name to it. Must taste. Oh, it's got cultures in it. It's going to taste a bit weird. And
I get it.
And maybe they'd read somewhere about people trying kefir. And, oh, it's a bit sour. So there was this. Apart from our awareness, actually there was a fundamental category barrier, and as the category leader, it felt like that was the first thing that needed to be addressed. So we ran this campaign, Gut Health Made Tasty, because people were talking about gut health, and actually we're going to smash that down. And by this point, we had lots of great taste awards, which is the standard label. So actually, let's just address that first barrier. And that we did in London, and then we did it again in January in London, Manchester, and Birmingham. And what we were seeing, tracking that, was awareness was going up in those regions. The perception of our brand was improving in terms of taste and quality. And we were able to do an analysis of our sales, because we're quite advanced in our data as a small brand. So we get our, we get Sakana data. We can see down to regionally and even store level what we're selling. So off the back of those campaigns, we were able to have control and test stores or regions and looking at the impact of our advertising. And we were seeing significant uplifts in the regions where we've been advertising. So that not only gave us confidence of what we're saying, but also that it's delivering in terms of sales.
Was it delivering instantly?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
That's amazing.
And then when you start to amortize that over the year and look at the kind of the 12-month impact that might have based on new people coming into the brand and the typical penetration and frequency of purchase, you could quite easily put a figure on what that you could assume
your business case starts to write itself.
Yeah, it does start to write itself. So we didn't jump into TV.
Yeah.
We had 2 quite significant campaigns for a relatively small but fast growth brand, that gave us the confidence to take that jump of saying, right, what's the quickest way now of reaching everyone? And it was through TV. And actually, when you then looked at, once we'd done these test cases, we really started to understand messaging was starting to work.
Yeah.
People understood us. It was awareness was going up, and the consideration was kind of in parallel of that, because people were understanding that we were natural gut health, which was really important, not just gut health, but natural gut health. And that generally we were quite tasty and we were a high quality brand.
Yeah.
They were the three things we really cared about. So that was starting to work. What's the quickest way of reaching everyone? Well, TV or radio. Now, having worked in food and drink for a long time, and you're relatively unknown, the cracking open of a Coca-Cola, that's well, for a start, our product doesn't shh when you open it, but equally, we need to be visually landing ourselves in front of consumers, because people haven't heard of us before. So radio for me,
but also you're
is off
seen
the
in
table.
store. You've got to connect.
You've got the visual piece. So radio's off the table. When you look at the efficiencies of reach, so TV is the most cost-effective way of reaching the masses. So we decided to invest in TV, and I mean, we went from growing our awareness when we started doing our above the line campaigns, and we started at 12% prompted. We'd then nationally grown to about 18%, but that was really off London, because London was so dense, and a bit in Manchester and Birmingham. To 12 months later or 18 months later, we're now knocking on the door 40% national awareness.
And if you know the value of what every aware adult is to the business, because you've proven your funnel, then that makes total sense.
So in terms of the efficiencies of reaching people, if people say TV is not, I can tell you people are watching TV.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people. Alan and Margaret in Hull, that's my kind of persona.
Oh yeah?
They are watching TV because they're now buying loads of this stuff, and they're having it on their breakfast every morning. And maybe a 20-year-old isn't, but there's other ways we can reach them. But people are watching TV, and that has been the fundamental driver of our awareness. So in terms of reaching people, it really can work. But then it's about how do we make sure that we're landing the right message, and not being too high level, brand airy fairy emotional, down to being too niche, so that someone doesn't think, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
So ultimately, lots of work was done around how do we make sure we're positioning the brand and our communication in the right way.
Yeah.
And what's that level of, I guess, simple messaging that we need to get. And ultimately where we netted out was gut health was starting to become really prevalent. Everywhere you look, people are talking about gut health, which is brilliant. Thanks, Tim Spector. Thanks, Michael Mosley, rest in peace. All these people talking about gut health. They even got Davina McCall going on about Simprove, and I call it synthetic gut health, which is I'll probably get sued for, so it's probably me. I won't say synthetic gut health, but through supplements rather than food. So gut health is supplement. And actually, where we netted out was, let's focus on natural gut health, because this is the most natural product you can have. It's milk and cultures. That's all it is. And then what does that mean for you? It can improve your gut health through delicious, and showing people basically like yogurt. That might sound really simple. Well, it does to me now, but actually it was a shift. And now
like all the marketing, it does after the event.
Well, ultimately, I'm really simple. And if I can understand it, then I'm hoping that most other people can.
Yeah.
If my Nan Irene, she can get what I'm doing, then I'm hoping that Margaret and Alan and Hull and can understand it quite quickly and just say, oh, it's like yogurt, but it's a bit better. Yeah. And I've heard about this gut health thing.
Yeah.
Great, I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah. I think there's such a risk that we, I love you talking about a customer who's not Sophie from Clapham, which is like my bugbear, but everyone in the fucking brands go on about Sophie from Clapham. I love that that's not your customer, but I also think there's this interesting sort of a tension we can get into when we're sort of like, well, these customers are intelligent, they're like us, and then there's other people who require like, I don't know. I think there's an elitism in the way we think about communication sometimes, where we'll say like they need something simple because they don't quite get it. But what I'm energized by and what you're saying is like, I'm simple.
Everyone,
Like, we're all really overwhelmed. This isn't about me, us and them. This is like about a human truth, which is that the world is way too frenetic and this is all really confusing and we're making decisions super quickly, and I need to see something on TV, think that looks nice and understand what it is, and then see it in store and know that I'm going to buy it.
I think it was can't remember what the M&C Saatchi, when they founded the business, or that used to be one of their kind of taglines as an ad agency, was something about simplicity. I can't remember exactly what it was, but ultimately people understand things quickly and it's relevant to them. And this is the thing, it's about simplicity but being relevant to them. And depending on where they are in their journey of purchase and where they maybe are in their journey, or within that category, and that's two slightly different things. So if someone's never heard of Biotiful gut health before, actually or they're not really familiar with kefir, we need to, as a category leader, we still need to do a basic job, which is it's a bit like yogurt. Oh, it's a yogurt with benefits, and it's to do with gut health. And at a mass level, you keep it relatively top line, and then you try and deliver that through a slightly interesting, personable, emotional way. But when it comes down to it, it's kefir is the best solution for gut health, and it's really easy, tastes good.
Yeah.
And then when you get further down into the funnel, and this is what the team have done absolutely brilliantly, is start to think about, well, what's the role of gut health for all these different people? For Alan and Margaret in Hull, who are in their 70s, right? Them and their friends might be thinking they might be suffering from IBS, or actually they're just really starting to think now about the importance of health because a lot of their friends are getting older and there's all these ailments. And gut health is a foundational part of what you do, can help everything else. So the reason they might consume kefir, it's different from Sophie in Clapham, who's already a very healthy balance seeker, but she might be thinking about, I'm so overworked and and all these things going on, I'm not sleeping very well, and gut health can help with sleep. So if at some point she's Googled how to improve my sleep, we'll go after her with a more relevant message around gut health can help your sleep, and here's a nice solution. And there's all these different things that brain gut axis, Crohn's and colitis, to elite athletes who when we work with loads of elite athletes, they consume kefir on a regular basis because not only is it a good source of protein, but good gut health can help them recover quicker, or so they believe. We're doing studies now with elite athletes to essentially prove that. So there's all these different reasons why someone would focus on their gut health, but at a top level, we are the natural gut health brand.
Yeah, that's so interesting. For each of those segments, you talked about very functional needs. And I can imagine in this category, it's kind of functional heavy. Yeah. But surely there's also like a really emotional strand to this, and a strand of influence. Like Sophie from Clapham, I bet, is drinking kefir kind of because she sort of feels like she's meant to. And that there's this feeling that like, that's sort of the trend, that's what being that's what being healthy. Yeah. This is why I drink kefir. I don't really know what I'm meant to do with kefir, but I definitely drink it as just like, I've got this awareness now that it's like part of what having a healthy lifestyle is. And so I kind of want to fit in. So I'll do it for that. And then equally, like for a different consumer who's in a different socioeconomic group, there's this feeling of like, that's what everyone else is doing. Or
well, again, I think it comes down to individual need states lower down.
Yeah.
Almost 90% of the UK adult population know that gut health is important. Right?
Yeah. And either it's because of X, or as you say, that.
And so there's this spectrum of, it being a cure to gut problems. They need to cure a gut problem, medicinal. Or sort of almost medicinal. Like we're talking like truly functional in the sense of, I don't personally have IBS, but I've got IVS. I need something that's going to help me deal with that so that I can live a normal life.
Yeah.
Okay. But ultimately, it's actually then enhancing my life. Other people who are like, right, I'm having bad sleep, or I'm bloated. So that again, that's sort of down that functional, medicinal, prevention, cure end.
Yeah.
But then there's other, people go, I know it's part of a balanced lifestyle, maybe you don't necessarily suddenly feel a difference because you don't necessarily have a bad gut.
Yeah.
So you don't have a bad gut, right? But you're doing it because you know it's part of a healthy lifestyle and you want to fit in.
Want to get in trouble. So
but actually, without you realizing it, you've actually improved the health of your gut, and as a result of that, you are living a better overall balanced lifestyle. Now, if you were to take it away, if it's part of your routine, you might feel a difference.
Yeah.
But that's fine. So the way that also it's still the same thing. You want to enhance your life, and you know gut health is important. Fine. Well, take things that are going to help your gut health.
Yeah. This is totally an aside. It's reminded me when I was growing up, my next door neighbours who were really good friends of ours, were chain smokers. So they'd smoke like 60 a day on their balcony, and they were like really amazing, kind of impressive people, and they had a lot in common with my parents. And Mum and I would always say to each other, like, don't they just feel awful all the time? Like, don't they know that they couldn't? And this was kind of when I'd had a couple of cigarettes behind the bike shed. I'm like, Mum, it's horrible, isn't it? And we would sort of go, like, should we tell them that it's going to make them feel terrible? And we're sort of where we got to was, well, they just don't know anything else. And it's about normalize it. Like, it really, like what you're saying really reminds me of that kind of reality, which is like we normalize a way of existing and then we change something and we don't necessarily notice benefit as such because we didn't know where we were.
In a way, and I mean, I think that smoking is a behaviour.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know stats, but you think how much it's dropped in the UK. I mean, like vaping's another issue and a whole nother topic. But in a way, the reason that that's dropped when you couldn't smoke inside anymore. So then it started to start with just everyone went outside, and then lots of people thought, I don't really want to go outside.
It's a bit cold.
And now you're almost, whenever you go to public places, there's this tiny little place like, oh, look at the smokers over there. And it is almost, oh, look at them. And they're almost excluded from society because they're doing the thing that once upon a time everyone was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope one day if you're not walking down the street or you're not having kefir on your breakfast, people will be like, are you mad? That's the simplest way of having a healthy lifestyle. Of course you need to do other things, but are you mad?
You're just like missing such a fundamental.
But you go to other countries in Eastern Europe, right? Literally, kefir has 90% penetration. It's like drinking milk on your cereal.
Really?
Yeah. So why can't that be the case here?
Well, it can and it will.
10 years ago, no one had heard of it here, and the category didn't exist. So again, these things take time, but it's about you're doing it because you kind of want to fit in. You know that there's a reason to do it, but actually it's the norm.
They do take time, but I think, I mean, yes, 90% penetration, that's going to take some time.
Yeah.
But it was only 8.5 years ago that tonic water wasn't seen as this like very foodie, bougie category, which has now completely changed. And you've been doing this job for 2 years, and the penetration growth in kefir, I would assume, is pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's fascinatingly fast and like slow and very fast.
It is, but there's 10 years before I joined both of those businesses that a lot of groundwork had been done. Ultimately, I know what seems like a quick overnight success, but overnight successes, they always take 10, 15.
They take a lot of setup.
Yeah.
But I think cultural change can be excitingly fast in pockets.
But coming back to the role of the marketer, which we started on, and I probably went off on some random tangent. My brain is fired after the particularly last 6 months. But how do you go from just being product focused, which ultimately, when you're selling to people who list you, whether that's pubs, bars, restaurants, retailers, you're talking about the product.
Yeah.
But only so many people will buy you just because of product. Mm-hmm. The journey then becomes, how do you take what in some cases is the most brilliant product and turn that into something that people have as part of their daily routine or lifestyle, or that is really relevant to them.
Yeah.
And that comes back to that sort of emotional relevance. And I was starting to give the example about, we talk about natural gut health, and we try to associate kefir with, enhancement and overall health and well-being. And we're still relatively on the journey for that. I've got another couple of years job to do before I'm probably like, right, someone else can take that on. But equally, there's only so many people who hit the ceiling if you just bang on about product USPs. So, and that's part of the exciting journey to go next, is how do you tap into, and the example was, yes, we're talking quite functional about, oh, you've got IBS, you've got this, or you've got, but how do you then deliver that in an emotional way?
Yeah.
And some of the really exciting stuff we've been doing, we work with lots of real people and we follow their journey. We've just done this campaign in January to March called the Gut Health Reset. And we've actually done this last year and then we followed real people's journeys and created a lot of the content to then use in January, and also just make sure it really worked. But if you
just a little quick check.
Yeah, it's quite essential. But the 2-week gut health reset.
Yeah.
If you consume kefir daily for 2 weeks, it will have a significant impact on the microbiome.
Yeah.
If you do it for 4 weeks, 2 months, etc., that then does start to have an impact. So we basically just follow people doing it. It's a bit similar to 1 year no beer, or people quitting smoking. All of these different things. Well, let's just follow real people, and then you take those real people. You take Sophie and Clapham, and then you then tell the story to other Sophies in Clapham. Yeah. I take Alan and Margaret.
Yeah.
I then tell that story in Women in Home.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just finding the right way of doing that. Yeah. And in a compelling way. So that's the emotional aspect. Ultimately, it's underpinned by human truth. Yeah. It's all about storytelling from that point of view.
Yeah. I can't let you go without hearing about this kind of big old recent change. We've not talked at all about the massive transition.
What
What are you
on
about? Why have the last 6 months been hard?
Well, I mean, the last 6 months have been a really exciting roller coaster. So I joined Biotiful 2 years ago because I truly believed in what the brand vision was. And when Natasha set up the business 12 years ago, it was about making natural gut health accessible to all.
Yeah.
And that immediately, I already started to understand gut health and the importance of it. And that is almost a North Star. Like that's so purpose driven. It's got such an opportunity to do that in many different ways. But as a brand that's come in and has quite literally transformed the entire yogurt category and dairy category, from 3 years ago there being a few products on shelf to there are entire kefir bays in Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Waitrose, in the entire bay. And that's massive.
What CMO would you love to hear from? Who should I have on next?
One of them is Bold Bean Co. You may have already done stuff with Bold
Not
Bean.
for a while. So Amelia came on a while ago, but they keep coming up. And I think this is every time someone says this to me, I'm like, I need to go.
I've got to know Amelia a little bit. We've had a few conversations because I am obsessed with the brand.
It's literally incredible.
I buy so many of their baked beans. The chili baked beans are quite possibly one of the greatest food inventions, not just in the last few years.
Spread.
It genuinely is.
Okay.
It's my go-to at home when I'm working from home.
I've never tried them. Shocking.
Honestly, they are. When I think about, and again, I get so excited about brands that could quite possibly change entire categories and disrupt them.
Yeah.
That the Bold Bean Co. could well be held up as one of those in the future.
Great.
I think the other one actually, whether I'm the challenge her to come on, is Fever Tree now, because they are such a brilliant brand, and Saskia Mayer,
who you introduced me to, or because okay.
So Saskia, right? Saskia, I would love to hear from Saskia. I'm friends with Saskia.
Okay, great. You can help me make this happen.
I'll help you. But she was the first employee at Fever Tree.
Seriously?
So worked her way up through marketing, and the reason I got involved initially was because she went out and had a baby, and then she was there as and she's been back as the marketing director, running the UK, looking after their growth since I moved into the global brand role.
Wow. Okay. So she's got some stories.
She will have some stories. I mean, in terms of working with a brand from the early days, you've got to have Saskia on.
Okay. Two amazing recommendations.
She'll kill me for this.
Sorry.
You're coming on, Saskia.
Sorry. Exactly. She can hide. That was great. Thank you so much.